Hi there, everybody. My name is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of this book, Playing Solo Jazz Piano, which is like crazily number 6 on the Amazon Jazz Book Charts bestsellers right now, which is amazing. Thank you for helping me get there, and thanks to those of you who have ordered it off of my site, where I'm happy to sign a book and send it off to you. So what I'm doing with my YouTube channel right now is I'm fixing some of the most common improvisation issues that I'm seeing with my students and with the students of others. And today, we're going to fix what I call a mumbly improv. And a mumbly improv maybe uses all the right notes, has good rhythms, keeps the form correctly, but just doesn't have a lot of personality. It's a little bit flat. So let me show you a mumbly improv on an F blues. So. So it doesn't feel bad, it doesn't sound bad, but it's not really quite making it as an improvisation. And I want to show you a little bit of why I think some of these mumbly improvs are not making it. And to do that, I want to look at a couple of transcriptions. So we're looking at part of a transcription that I did of Bud Powell playing ornithology, different O tune. And I want to start over here at measure 17. And let me play these 8 bars for you, and we'll maybe look at some more. But it sounds like this. All right. And there's a lot that we could do with this transcription, of course. There's a lot to learn from it. But what I want to look at is for each phrase, what's the top note, what's the bottom note, and then what's the distance between those two notes? And we'll see why shortly. Now, we could certainly debate a little bit about what to call a phrase. I'm going to try to create some shorter phrases because some of these phrases really go on a long time. So, if we call this measure a phrase, essentially, it's a very kind of silly, sing-songy measure, I think. So our lowest note is an F sharp, our highest note is a G. So we'd say an octave plus a half step. So I think that's probably all one phrase if I'm being honest about it. And the lowest note seems like it's that D, the highest note is this G here. So this phrase is like an octave plus a fifth. Plus a fourth. Our next phrase would probably be roughly that next measure. And this is F to G, so this is like a 7th or so. Next phrase would be kind of these last 2 measures of the page. And let's see, our lowest note is that very first F, our highest note is that B flat, so that's like an octave plus a fourth. Let me play these 2 lines before we go on for you one more time so you can kind of hear it and listen specifically for the range of those phrases. I played that wrong. Let's go on just a little bit because that's a pretty small sample size. And here, I'll play this for you. There's a long string of 8 notes, so I'm going to divide it up. Not that interesting to just think, okay, in that very long string of 8 notes, what's the, top and bottom notes? So let's divide it just into 2 measure phrases. I know that those aren't really phrases, but I think it'll be more useful. So let's see, our top note would be this high E flat, the bottom note would be that low. It's an F sharp because of the key signature. So this is like a diminished 7th between these. In these two measures, we're up on this D, we're down on this A, so that's like an octave plus a fourth. Let's see, in this next phrase, we go down to a B, up to an F, so that's an octave plus a diminished fifth. Let's call it a tritone, octave plus a tritone. And then here, we have this high D down to this low B flat, so that's like an octave plus a third. So notice something here. At our smallest, we're having maybe the diminished seventh as our smallest distance. But most phrases are going larger than an octave, right? And I think that's very interesting. And I want to look at how he's achieving this. Because one of the things from my Mumbly Improv, and you could probably guess that this is the point I'm trying to make, is that the Mumbly Improv stays within a very small range. So let's look at this first phrase here. The phrase doesn't really end, but we'll call it the first phrase. And in order to play that phrase, I don't know what's going on with my camera here. In order to play that phrase, I would start crossed over with my 2, and then I'd cross over again. I should really be saying cross under. Just like if I'm playing the G major scale, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. So I'm crossing over with my second to play the first note, and then under with my thumb to go up further. Let's look at this next couple of measures. Watch my hand. Had to cross over with my third finger. Crossing over again with my third finger. Crossing under with my thumb. Crossing under again with my thumb. Watch it in faster motion. Do you see how much my hand is moving in order to make that work? It's going into many different positions. And even the smaller phrase, where the expanse was only about a seventh, have to cross over. Oh, bad fingering, I'm going too slow. And then watch again. So in every single phrase, there's a cross over or a cross under happening. And that's going to continue on as we go to this second page. And especially this next double time line that's about to come. It's just a scale pattern, but it spans an octave and a fourth, and I have to do 1, 2 cross unders to make it work. Okay, so you could see the point that I'm trying to make, that as Bud Powell plays, as compared to that very first mumbly improvisation I showed you, he's covering a larger range, number one, and the way that he's achieving it, number two, is that he's doing it through crossovers and crossunders. Now, there are some other things happening. He's expanding and contracting his hand much more than I was during my mumbly improv. But it's really, I think, it's the crossovers and crossunders that are key. Before I get to showing you the solution, I want to show you one more solo if I can. Because one of the things that we know about Keith Jarrett is that he taught a few students. And apparently the thing that the student said that he was obsessed with more than any other was the shapes that Bud Powell made when he practiced, when he was playing piano. And apparently Keith was known for practicing playing not necessarily the notes that Bud Powell was playing, but trying to play the same shapes. So as we look at this ballad solo for I Got It Bad and That Ain't Good, and some of you might recognize this is one of my favorite transcriptions. If you watched my video about Keith Jarrett and Brad Meldau ballad styles, then I showed you a little bit of this transcription. But listen to this these first few bars. I'm going to start at letter A. Again, if we look at these phrases, he's always, I shouldn't say always, he's almost always expanding more than an octave. Here it's just a seventh between A and G. Here he very quickly is moving from C all the way up to a high E here pretty quickly from D down to E, down to G sharp, and then back up to B. There's so much up and down. There's so much up and down, which makes the solo so expressive, the opposite of mumbly. Okay, so now how would you go about fixing this problem? I mean, so the simple answer is that you want to practice phrases that span more than an octave, and then also practice crossing over and crossing under. So I like to start just doing a drone improvisation, starting on C to practice the white keys, and setting myself some goals of highest and lowest notes. So how about I'll go from middle C up to this E. And back down. Let's find 3 other ways to get there. And notice I'm having to do a lot of crossing over and under. Bud Powell started that very first phrase crossed over already, and that's a really good thing to practice too. Okay, and once you get good at getting at that E, let's go higher. Can you reach that A? It's like you're trying to clear a bar on a hurdle or a high jump. Crossed over with my 2 and 3. And then also start high and go down. Can I get from this C, let's go down to that D. Right? You challenge yourself to do different things. Can I get there fast? Faster? How many? Can I get there in how few notes? How fast can you go back and forth, or how slowly? So those kind of exercises, setting different goal notes for yourself, is a really good place to start. Then I go back to the blues. And I would think similarly. I would think that every phrase has to span more than an octave. And maybe start focusing going up. So I'm going to start on this F, so I've got to get higher than this F. Then I'm going to start on B flat, so I've got to get higher than B flat. Then I'm going to start on C, so I'm going to get higher than this C. Similar to those that I was making as I was playing the Bud Powell. Now there's all kinds of expanding, contracting, crossing under, crossing over. Then I'm measuring how far up or how far down do I need to go in order to make this span more than an octave. As you do it more and more, you're probably going to find yourself, just naturally going above where you planned for with that octave, and I think that's totally fine. But to me, this is one of the main keys for stopping mumbly improv, is spanning a bigger range with each phrase. Stay tuned to this channel for more tips on how to fix some of the biggest issues with improvisation. And do check out my book, Playing Solo Jazz Piano, on Amazon or at my site. Likes, comments, anything is appreciated. I'll see y'all soon.